This is the moment.
The accent comes up when she gets dramatic.
He's very good at that.
That's why you tune in.
Classic Weatherly.
Tony Dinozzo and Ziva David sat next to each other on a stage in Birmingham this weekend. And something Michael Weatherly said with Cote de Pablo sitting right beside him might be the single most important piece of information in this entire story so far. Not a leak. Not a theory. Something he said directly in front of a room full of fans with the person who played Ziva David for 8 seasons sitting less than 3 feet away from him. And once you hear what it was, I honestly do not think you will see this season 24 return the same way again. Here is what I want to cover in this video. What Weatherly actually confirmed this weekend about the connection between the spinoff and the mothership. Why that confirmation matters more than almost anything CBS has said officially. What we know about where Ziva was left off emotionally and narratively. Why a Ziva return would not just be nostalgia. It would be the only way this story actually makes sense going forward. What that reunion looks like for every single member of this team. And the release date CBS just locked in this week, which changes the entire timeline of when we will actually get our answer. First, let me lay out exactly where things stand because the last 2 weeks have moved fast. On July 1st, NCIS announced through its official Instagram that Michael Weatherly is returning as Tony Dinozzo for a season-long arc in season 24. The caption read, "We have missed this one. Welcome back, old friend." And the fan response was immediate and enormous. People who have been asking for this since Tony left the team in season 13 finally got their answer. But almost immediately, the follow-up question became just as loud as the announcement itself. Where is Ziva? Because anyone who watched NCIS Tony and Ziva knows exactly how that story ended. Tony and Ziva reunited in Paris. Their daughter Tali safe. The two of them officially back together as a couple and as a family after a season that put them through kidnapping, betrayal, and an attack on Tony's own security firm. There was no unresolved separation. There was no reason narratively for Tony to walk back into that Navy Yard bullpen alone. And when Deadline asked CBS directly whether Cote de Pablo would also be returning alongside Weatherly, the network declined to comment. Not a no. A refusal to answer the question at all. That kind of silence from a network that usually loves teasing a reunion tells you there is something still being worked out behind the scenes. Then came this weekend. On July 11th and 12th, Weatherly and de Pablo appeared together at Comic-Con Midlands in Birmingham. Their first joint public appearance since the season 24 news broke. And during that panel, Weatherly said something that I think fans have been waiting to hear for 2 weeks. He confirmed that there is, in his words, a definite connection between the canon of Tony and Ziva and whatever comes next on NCIS. He said clearly there is not going to be retconning of like, oh, Tony and Ziva never happened. Sitting right next to Cote de Pablo when he said it. I want to sit with that for a second because I do not think people are giving it enough weight. CBS could have brought Tony back and simply ignored the spinoff. Plenty of long-running procedurals do exactly that. They quietly wave away an inconvenient storyline and move on. Weatherly himself just told a room full of fans that is not what is happening here. The spinoff counts. Paris counts. The reunion counts. Tally counts. Which means season 24 has to explain on screen why Tony Dinozzo is walking back into that building without the family he fought so hard across an entire season to protect. And the only satisfying answer to that question is one where Ziva is either already involved in whatever brings Tony back or where her absence becomes the exact thing that eventually pulls her back into that bullpen herself. Weatherly also revealed something else at that panel that quietly moved this whole timeline forward. He said he begins filming his return on Tuesday, July 14th. That is tomorrow, which means the version of Tony we have all been theorizing about for 2 weeks is about to start being real footage, real scenes, real decisions about exactly how this story unfolds. Now let me walk you through what a Ziva return would actually look like inside that building, because I think this is the most exciting creative conversation this franchise has had in years, and I want to give it the space it deserves. Start with McGee. Sean Murray and Cote de Pablo built one of the deepest friendships in this show's history. Across 8 seasons together, long before anything romantic ever happened between Tony and Ziva. McGee was the person she trusted with things she not trust with anyone else on that team. Watching Timothy McGee, who has now carried the institutional memory of this entire agency for 23 years, stand face to face again with the woman who was his equal partner for so much of that history, would be one of the most quietly devastating scenes this franchise has ever had the chance to write. Then there is Palmer. Brian Dietzon's character has changed enormously since Ziva was last a full presence in that building. The Jimmy Palmer, who once could barely function in a room with Ziva David, is a very different man now. Someone who has spent the last year becoming the emotional center of this entire team. His genuine reaction when Ziva turned out to be alive was one of the most human moments the show ever produced. Watching that friendship pick back up between two people who have both been through so much would carry real weight on its own. And then think about Torres. Watching Torres actually meet the legend, probably completely unimpressed for the first several minutes before she does something that instantly recalibrates his understanding of what a field agent can be, is exactly the kind of dynamic this show knows how to write. Knight and Cassie encountering Ziva raises a different question entirely. Both of them built their own authority inside an agency that Ziva helped define long before either of them arrived. How does Ziva David walk into a room with Jessica Knight and Casey Hines without quietly reshaping the entire power balance of that team, simply by being there? That is the kind of tension this franchise thrives on. And then there is Gabrielle LaRoche. And I genuinely think this piece of the puzzle is not getting enough attention. Following director Vance's death, LaRoche, played by Seamus Dever, has been positioning himself for the director's chair, using political leverage and institutional maneuvering that Tony DiNozzo alone cannot fully counter, because Tony fights with instinct and LaRoche fights with bureaucracy. Ziva David spent her career reading people for a living. That is not a skill she picked up, it is who she is. The moment she sits across from someone like LaRoche and goes still and quiet the way she does when she is cataloging everything a person is trying not to show, he is dealing with something he has never had to deal with before. Someone who sees exactly what he is doing and has absolutely no institutional reason to pretend otherwise. Now, here is where I want to be completely honest with you, because accuracy matters more to me than hype. None of this is confirmed. Ziva's return to the mothership has not been announced by CBS, and Cote de Pablo has not said on the record that she is coming back to Navy Yard. What is confirmed is that CBS refused to rule it out. What is confirmed is that Weatherly and de Pablo chose to appear together publicly for the first time since the announcement. What is confirmed is that Weatherly went out of his way, sitting next to her, to say their story is not being erased. And what is now also confirmed is the timeline all of this is building toward, because this week, CBS locked in the premiere date. NCIS Season 24 arrives Tuesday, October 6th at 8 o'clock Eastern, alongside the launch of NCIS New York and the new shortened season of NCIS Origins. That is earlier than fans expected, earlier than last year's mid-October return, and it means we are now less than 3 months away from finding out exactly how Tony DiNozzo walks back through those doors and whether Ziva David walks in beside him. I think about the way Michael Weatherly paused before letting Cote de Pablo walk out onto that stage first this weekend, and I do not think that was an accident either. 23 years of this story, and they are still protecting it, still choosing each other in every way that matters off screen, even while the network stays quiet about what happens on it. So tell me, do you think CBS is going to confirm Ziva before that October 6th premiere? Or do you think they are saving it as a mid-season surprise? And if she does walk back into that bullpen, what is the one scene you need to see more than anything else? I have a feeling this comment section is going to have a lot to say, and honestly, after 23 years of these two characters finding their way back to each other, I think they deserve to be in that building together. And I have a feeling this fall, they finally will be.